Hey folks, welcome to this first video tutorial for Chewy. Basically what we're going to cover in this video is like the basics of the internet. Like what happens when you type a URL into your browser, what happens on the other end, a little bit of the in-between, but not too much, really just the very basic. I'm gonna basically set everything up from scratch. So I got this domain called chewydemos.com. And I set up this DigitalOcean account here where we can spin up a server. And what we are going to do, is figure out, okay, so when I go somewhere on the internet, I go to chewydemos.com. Right now, there's nothing here. What sort of happens next? What do we want to happen? How do these systems all work together? So first, you need a domain, a thing that you want to go to. So I got chewydemos.com, and we are going to go to chewydemos.com, and I'm going to open up the Chrome DevTools here. So if you work as a developer, and specifically doing web development, you tend to spend a lot of time in here. And this shows you a lot of just how a web page works and how the network works. I'm not going to go in depth on how the networking stuff works, in part because I'm not an expert in that, but I can cover the basics. I hit enter, I go to chewydemos.com, and what happens here? Chrome will send out a request to chewydemos.com, and in this case, the domain's not configured, so it just says I can't figure out what this is supposed to be, error, name not resolved. So essentially what happens is you need this name to resolve to an address on the internet, an IP address. And that's how things know how to talk to each other. So your computer will send out this request. There's a whole bunch of complicated stuff that determines how it's going to go figure out what the correct IP address is. But in its simplest form, we need that IP address to be listed here. Okay, so what do we need next? We need something to be attached to that IP address. We need a server. Now, the word server can mean a couple different things. It can be either software or hardware. Basically, something, software or hardware, that responds to a request of some sort. So when we talk about the internet and a lot of other things, we talk about the client-server model. So the client in our case, in this demo, is the browser. And the server is going to be two things. For this demo, we'll call it a hardware server. So we need like an actual machine in DigitalOcean's data centers. And we also need some software. And the software server running on the hardware server is going to wait for a request from the browser. And when it gets that request, it's going to respond back with some information. So let's do this. We're going to create a droplet is just DigitalOcean's term for a virtual machine. The reason I'm using DigitalOcean, we use it a lot for our projects at Ephemat Creative, which is the company behind Chewy. Because for a lot of our clients, it's quite nice because they're stable pricing and pretty low pricing by comparison with the big cloud providers like AWS, GCP, and Azure. It's also a lot simpler to deal with. So we are going to create or spin up a really nice cheap machine. We're going to use Ubuntu, which is a version of Linux that is nice and easy to use. There's a lot of documentation out there, which makes it practical. You also have to choose which data center. So one of our considerations pretty often is our data staying in Canada for our clients who have data privacy and protection requirements that tell them they have to keep their data in Canada. If you're thinking about GDPR and some other privacy frameworks around the world, you might want to switch to Frankfurt or San Francisco, depending on your needs. So I've already got an SSH key here. We won't actually, I won't get into what that is, but essentially it's a key to access your server, a little bit like a key to access your house or apartment or whatever. You could also use a password, but this is a little simpler for me because I already have mine configured. I'm going to call this Chewy Demo Test. That's just a way for me to know which machine this is. And if you're actually building something where you're going to be storing data and stuff, probably a good idea to have backups. In our case, we're just going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so this usually takes just a couple minutes, but yeah, in the meantime, maybe we can hop over here. Oh, no, can't do anything here. Actually, I will talk a little bit about Cloudflare. Cloudflare is a service where you can purchase domains and you can manage them, and you can do all kinds of fun stuff to speed your website up and to protect it and a whole bunch of other stuff. That's pretty cool. And they keep adding new things as well. So we can see that this is now ready. And we were talking about IP addresses. So by default, when a service, a cloud provider like DigitalOcean spins up a new machine, it's going to be assigned an IP address. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to create what's called an A record, which is a way to point this domain to that machine, to that specific IP address. You'll see there are a bunch of other types of records. We won't go into those, right? The types you deal with most often at early stages of web development are going to be A records and CNAMEs. We won't dive into this proxied stuff too much, but when you're using Cloudflare, essentially that's a way to enable all of the sort of fun features that they provide for speeding things up and security. And cool. Okay, so now can we go to chewydemos.com? We can't. With Cloudflare, it's pretty fast, but essentially you kind of need to tell the whole internet, like everyone out there around the world, that going to this domain should go to this IP. And that takes a little while to spread out around the internet. So usually you have to wait a bit. With Cloudflare, it tends to be pretty fast, but we still have a problem. So I'll do this and we still get nothing. And the issue is that we don't have any software waiting for that request. I'm going to click on this, and for the sake of this demo, all we're going to do is check out access. And we'll do that, launch droplet console. And this gives us a command line. If you're not used to command lines and you're wanting to get more into web development, you might want to practice a little bit. If you're on a Mac, you can open up your terminal, and that's how you'll get into that. On Windows, you can use PowerShell, though you might want to install something like Git Bash so you get more familiar with the sort of Linux style stuff, because you will be doing a lot more Linux related stuff if you're delving into web development. So this is our server. If we do ls, that should list the stuff in this directory. So we've got this thing called snap. Don't need to worry about that. I'm going to make a directory called demo. That's what the mkdir command does, and we'll cd into demo. Here we'll do touch server.js. You'll see if I do ls, we can see that created server.js. That's a file. And we will use this little command called vim, which is a text editor. And we will open server.js. So you'll find also that as you get into web development, basically all we do is Google stuff. That's the work, is figuring out what other people have done before, learning from it, adapting it to your needs. So yeah, I tend not to remember a whole lot of specific stuff. You just get really good at remembering where that stuff is on the internet so you can find it next time. You do develop muscle memory for when you're actually writing code, but in this case, I'm going to head back over here and I will paste that. And let's go back up here. I should know the shortcuts for Vim. I do not. I'm going to set this to 0.0.0.0 for reasons, and we'll set it to port 80, also for reasons. And I will do that, which will write this stuff to the file that we created. Okay, so I will go a little bit into those reasons. Making the hostname 0.0.0.0 will make that sort of available to the public. And the port, when you go to a website, by default, your browser is making a request to the IP address or to the server that the domain resolves to. It defaults to port 80. When you're doing a secure request, HTTPS, it resolves, or it goes to port 443. We just want insecure request for now, so we'll start that on port 80. Now, okay, how do I get this code up and running? This is JavaScript, and the way to run JavaScript on a server is using what's called Node. I am not going to get into sort of how these different things interrelate, but too deeply. But basically, Node is think of it as a program that interprets the JavaScript file. It grabs that text, it knows what to do with it and turn it into like a running program. So if I type Node, we'll get nothing. But Ubuntu conveniently provides us with the command to install it. So I'll do that. I'll hit yes. And now I'll run node server.js. Okay, so we'll head over to chewydemos.com. Actually, I'll just restart. I did something, so I'll restart my server here. And if we go to chewydemos.com, we'll see hello world. And so we can see that's just code in this server file. So we have hello world right here. I can change it to hello Chewy. And now, if I start that server again, we'll see hello Chewy. And just to cap off this video, the stuff that you send back from the server, from the code running over here, that can be basically any sort of file or information. In here, you'll see it says content type text plain. I'm gonna switch that over to HTML. You could send back an image if you wanted to. You'd have to load that from somewhere. But even with text, there's different sort of types of text. And so this is this sort of next layer of the web, which is the things that run on the front end. So I'm going to do this and write that and quit. If I do node server again, here we've got a header. So you can see our code had that H1. That's HTML telling the browser to render a header, like a level 1 header. There's 6 levels. Yeah, that's how the web works. So you send back information from this server, the browser will interpret it if it's HTML or these other things. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are the 3 sort of main things that the browser knows how to interact with. And you could also send back a file and tell the browser to download that. You can send back different types of text that the browser can load into JavaScript. Yeah, you can do all kinds of stuff, but that's the basics. So you have a domain, your browser sends a request through that domain to your server, physical server. That physical server is running a software server. That software server receives that request, interprets it, and spits something back out. And that thing gets rendered back to the screen by the browser, or depending on what else it might be. And yeah, that's the basic flow of the web and how this all works. So thanks for watching. Hopefully this was a useful introduction to how the web works. And If you like this video, make sure to subscribe. We'll have other stuff soon, hopefully. You can join the community at we.gochewy.io. And yeah, see you next time.